You are worth billions of dollars. And before this video is over, you will have the knowledge and understanding of how to apply it in your own life to start seeing these blessings. But first, welcome back to HypnoVision Studios. I am your host, Nicholas. I want to start today's video off with a definition from the Oxford Dictionary of the word future. The time or a period of time following the moment of speaking or writing. Time regarded as still to come. So if we drill down into the very definition of the word future, it is the following moment of something being spoken or written into existence. So writing is the most powerful form of manifestation. And if you had told me this a few years ago, I probably would have laughed at you. And to be honest, there probably are a few of you out there that feel the same about hearing me say this right now. But if you stick around, I will show you. I also want to start off with the story of Buddha and the angry man, as I was recently reminded of this story, and it makes a lot of sense. As the story goes, Buddha was teaching, and a man came along who was angry. And as Buddha was teaching, the man began to amp up his anger and shouting at Buddha. And Buddha did not respond. The more that Buddha did not respond, the more angry the man became. Finally, the man asked, "Why aren't you mad at me?" And this response was very simple. If a person gives you a gift and it is not accepted, who does the gift belong to? Now, this holds a very deep symbolic meaning because Buddha did not accept the gift of anger, meaning the man had to hold his own anger. And this is quite revealing when we start to apply this to our own lives, that sometimes people can want us to feel how they feel as a gift. So the gift of life and the gift of being present is how we define our life story. If we have a lot of inner conflict, or we are around other people who have a lot of inner conflict, then it can quite literally rub off onto us. This is why I'm going to circle back around to writing being the most powerful form of manifestation. I'm going to read a little bit I wrote this morning to you, and then we will start to dig down into this. And quite literally, this is about your own life, not just me presenting this as a video here on YouTube. You are worth billions, and I'm going to show you through writing. There was a time in my own life when I could not sit still and I could not even write one sentence for myself. I had been on what I could call a just very long extended time of trying to hold things together, trying to plug all the holes in a sinking ship. And if you ever seen the cartoons, every time you plug one hole, there's another hole that pops up somewhere. So you can quite literally find yourself spending all your time trying to fix problems that are not even yours. Now, obviously, if a ship is sinking, then that is a problem that you have to deal with personally. But sometimes people will poke holes in those ships just for those reasons. And this is where writing begins to allow you to see things that are in your mind and be able to reframe them. What do I mean by reframe? When you look at a book, it is framed in a book cover, right? From the front of the book to the back of the book. If it's a hard copy, there is a front and a back. We frame pictures, and they often say that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Why? Because pictures can tell stories that in words takes a lot, right? If I wanted to describe how to build a top of the line skyscraper, for example, then I would have to write out in great length and great detail all of those attributes of the building. However, if you saw the image of a building, you would know right off bat a lot about that building just by the visual representation. So this does come back to the mental pictures and the mental images that we build in our mind, the ideal self, right? The idea of self and the idea of others. Now, one thing that is lost on many people, including myself, and I have to constantly work at staying aware of this, is that inner story that I have built inside of my own imagination. And there comes a point when you come to the initial self-awareness and then the deconstruction of that story and reconstruction of it. So there is that time where you, let's say you call it awakening, right? You awaken to the story that you're telling yourself, and then you realize there's different aspects of it that either came from other people that you believed about yourself, or these are stories that you just literally made up. And yes, it happens on an unconscious level many times. So don't feel shameful, don't feel regretful about having some of these self-realizations. In fact, they hold a lot of blessings. Lessons lead to blessings. And again, I'm going to show you through writing how to apply this as knowledge, and knowledge leads to wealth, and knowledge leads to power. Not so much power over other people, but power over yourself. The authority to write your life story is to author, right? Author authority. We think in this lines, we can see how powerful writing truly is. As I started to write, I slowly went back to my childhood. Now, I recently came across someone on TikTok that was basically saying that childhood healing was a bunch of BS. It's just hogwash. It's made up stuff. But I truly believe through my own experience that I was able to go back through my writing and identify, right? Because this is a part of healing that if you go into psychology circles and look at healing and stuff like that, you have to be able to identify something that is wrong. Now, in other circles, you might call this shadow work, to self-reflect and say, am I the one that's causing the problem? Am I the one that is seeing something in a certain fashion that is not really true? So yes, inner child healing to me is a real thing, but it does not mean that you have to spend the rest of your life trying to heal your inner child. In fact, I do believe that children are the most powerful healers in the world. I had an experience with my youngest daughter a few years ago where we had this quote unquote, this deep soul stare into each other's eyes. And there was no words that could put into expression of what transpired in those few moments. It was truly like a soul stare because nothing needed to be said because everything was understood. And that is, in fact, the truest meaning of communication, where you don't have to explain something. You just simply know. It's an inner knowing. And that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that your inner child is still a part of you, and to allow yourself to love and play like a child and not be childish. So there is a little bit of a balance, right? To love and play like a child, but not be childish. The reason I say this is because children, they forgive very easy and they forget very easy, and they're all playing with the next idea or the next story or the next thing, while adults tend to hold on to things. Adults will hold on to hurt and pain, and sometimes they will try to get even. That is a human nature that we all experience and that we all at times can struggle with. So don't beat yourself up and don't feel in shame over things that have happened in your life, because your past, it does not define you. So when I started to write about my childhood and different events that happened, I slowly started to recount those events, and I worked my way slowly to the present moment. Now, this helped me to go back and look at different lessons and patterns in my life and ask myself, why did these things happen, without blaming someone else? Why did I experience this same dynamic with not just one person, but multiple people? This dynamic played over time and time again. Now, there is a song by, I think it's Cyndi Lauper or Cyndi Lauper. I never really know how to say her last name, but it's Time After Time. So we repeat the same things over and over until we decide to change the story. Again, most of this stuff happens on a subconscious level. So writing allows you to take things out of your mind. And there is a technique in psychology called mindfulness. If a mind is full, it cannot accept anything new. So first, we must empty out the contents of our mind in order to put new stuff in. It kind of makes sense. So writing is a form of being able to take stuff out of your mind and put it on a piece of paper. Now, this does many different things. It has many functions to it. One of the biggest things is, as I've just previously mentioned, is to get it out of your head. You can actually put something on a piece of paper and write it out and then put it to the side and come back to it later. Now, if you think in terms of a puzzle, sometimes you may only get bits and pieces out of your head when you're thinking about stuff and worrying about stuff, or have something on your mind and you jot it down, right? So I have several different notebooks full of stuff, and there are bits and pieces in different notebooks that when I look at the bigger picture, like a puzzle, I start to see, oh, wow, this piece actually goes with this piece in this notebook over here. I see how these things are connected now, where I could not by simply trying to hold these things in my imagination. And the reason for that is the mind consumes more energy in the body than anything else. I mean, it is in charge of everything, right? The mind is in charge of all of the bodily functions. It is in charge of making sure that you show up for work on time, or that you are able to complete tasks and carry out different functions. So the mind is not only just part of the imagination, it is the whole entirety of the body, and it is the operations manager of the body. So it has to ensure that the day-to-day functions of the body are able to work properly. Once we start to pull things out of our head and start to reorganize, now this taught me about self-talk, because I was able to take those lessons and see the blessing by simply reordering the way that the story was written. Now, I want to give this small disclaimer, right? Because I don't like talking about the term narcissism, but there is a paradigm here that I really want to point out to everyone, right? So in the Neville Goddard teachings, he talks about revision, to revise your story, to revise different events in your life, to see them differently. This also is a form of forgiveness, because to forgive means to forget. Just how I mentioned earlier with children, they simply 15 to 20 minutes later, they have already forgotten about events. Unless it was something very traumatizing, they do have a tendency to move on pretty quickly. Now, on the flip side of that, the term narcissist, which is something I truly have to always say that I don't like to use, there is a lack of inner understanding of that story, and it is always written from a self-serving point of view. What can I get for myself? What can others do for me? How can I get the most out of this situation? When you start to understand that, yes, indeed, you are, from your own perspective, the sole star of the show, so to speak, the self-story. You are the focal point, but it is not always just about you. Sometimes it is how you can help others, how you can see in others that which they cannot see in themselves. So there is an act of selflessness that comes with understanding how to rewrite your story. And this is where you start to see your true value, your true worth, that you are literally worth billions of dollars, because your ideas and the way that you are able to help others see, right? There's a public speaker, I guess he's from the 80s, John Ron, who spoke about using your life story as the light. Why? Because a lot of times people can't see a way out of a narrative in their head. And here you come along and you share your life story, and this person sees that you were able to overcome something, and that gives them hope. Where they could not see a way before, now they see a way. And that was because of your life story. Now, I don't know who doesn't see the amazement of that in itself. Another way that you could look at this is that life story is your life story, and you are allowed to speak on it. So don't hide your light, this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. So writing is definitely, absolutely, positively a form of manifestations. So another thing that I learned with writing was parables and using metaphors, right, to get on other people's levels. So, for example, if my daughter came and asked me a question, my first response would be, how can I relate to this in a way that she can understand it? So I would try to get on her level through the understanding of her emotional maturity, her mental maturity, and just simply the fact that she's a child. So sometimes being able to find a way to relate allows them to see the lesson, the understanding without the overall explanations of things, so to speak. So we can use metaphors in a way to have personal relations with others. How do we relate to someone else? So a side note, this is an exercise, right? Writing is not just manifesting. It is not just about healing. There's also an exercise to it, because the more that you write, the more that you can see. And this is the seeing the inner dialogue, right? I was brutally honest with myself about a lot of different things that happened in my life. And then I was just as brutally honest with how I was going to address them and change them, and to forgive and to forget certain things that just were not in alignment with me. I did not want to keep repeating that story in my life, so I had to let it go. And sometimes when you let things go, it also means that other people who shared that with you, right? Sometimes you have to let them go also, and that's okay. Writing serves many functions, and it is about those inner thoughts. So for number one, it helps with the framing. As I spoke earlier about how a book is framed, how a picture is framed, we are also framing things inside of our imagination, inside of our mind's eye. Now, if you saw my videos around Saturn about the limited thinking and boxing in the imagination, the black box really does represent something along the lines of Pandora's box. Once you open the box, you cannot really put everything back into it. So thinking outside of the box is a form of unlimited imagination. It really can't be boxed in. However, when we think about the outside world, and if we only take things from the outside world, are we adding to our life? Are we adding to our lives, or are we taking away from our lives? If we are never giving to the outside world, then we were always taking from the outside world. So again, this is about framing that inner dialogue, framing that inner story. And that is very interesting. And I want to also read to you something from Neville Goddard. This is something that I've talked about before. When he says, to feel intensely about a wrong without voicing or expressing the feeling is the beginning of dis-ease. Dis-ease in both the body and environment. The reason why this is so important is to allow yourself to speak out what is bothering you, to speak out something isn't right. Now, one of the things I read a few years ago, this was more of about the society of things, is that when we don't allow people to express themselves, this is the beginning of mental illness. It is because people are holding thoughts and feelings that are uncomfortable, and they seek to have a discussion, a conversation, to gain some type of understanding. Why do I feel this way? What is this within me? But if I am not allowed to speak openly and honestly, then how can anyone ever truly hear me? How can anyone ever truly see me if I am not allowed to speak? This is very important when we start to understand the inner dialogue, the outer dialogue, and how we are relating to other people. When we start to label free speech or being able to speak openly as hate speech, or as this speech or that speech, or we start to give pronouns as a way to identify, and you do understand through the healing process that identifying with things that are not in alignment with you so that you can release them allows for healing. this makes a lot of sense when you start to realize that this is where mental dis-ease in both the body and environment starts to happen. This is how we start to have that inner conflict. And you can really witness this a lot through different religious formats where you are supposed to be seen acting a certain way, but that doesn't account for the feelings on the inside, right? If we're not allowed to openly speak about the feelings, we can hardly ever get to the place where we can really apply what it means to live from the end and to live in the wish fulfilled. And I will get to that in just a minute. The writing itself is, you could look at it like writing as a best friend to a best friend, meaning yourself. You are your own best friend. And what kind of advice would your best friend give you? Honestly, the best kind of advice that is for your well-being. So in that sense, it allows you to reconnect with yourself once you start to write. So be your own best friend, love yourself, and express that through your own writing. And me personally, I do use multiple colors when I write because sometimes through self-inquiry, I ask a question with one color, respond in a different color. It's just a simple technique and a simple exercise of expression. It's not really that weird, to be honest. Writing also helps you to understand patterns. As I mentioned earlier, once I started to realize that there were more than one occasion where a pattern played out with different people, that the dynamic was pretty much the same, I started to realize it was me that was creating that dynamic. Why? Because I didn't understand, for number one. Number two, I kept replaying that dynamic, I think because subconsciously I was trying to understand the dynamic. So that was something that was very eye-opening, was not just seeing the patterns in other people, but seeing the patterns in myself. And also seeing the patterns of the history of civilization in general. Now, in high school, I got straight A's in history. I'm not a history major. I never went to college, but history was one of those things that always came naturally to me, and I gravitated towards it. So I do love history. And I understand that if a pattern does not change, then it is destined to repeat itself over and over. Just like if you spin a top on a table, it's going to continue until the energy runs out and the top ends up falling over. If there's nothing that comes along and bumps the top and makes it move to the left or right, it's going to continue going in the same direction. And that is kind of how our lives work, right? If we don't change our self-story, if we don't change ourselves, then how can we see change on the outside? If we don't release inner conflict, then we will always carry that inner conflict with us, and it will always be resistance within ourselves. When we start to understand how we are creating and framing our own life story, we can start to change it. And I want to read something else to you guys. Never entertain an undesirable feeling nor think sympathetically about a wrong in any shape or form. Do not dwell on the imperfection of yourself or others. To do so is to impress upon the subconscious with these limitations. What you do not want done onto you, do not feel it done onto another. This is the whole law of a full and happy life. Everything else is commentary. Guys, this is on page 9 from The Feeling is the Secret. And I really want you guys to see this, right? Every time I start talking along and about this topic, I feel electrified. I feel goosebumps. I feel energy flowing through my body because I know it to be true now. This really gets at the heart of manifestation, happiness, and understanding what the wish fulfilled truly is. I want to also drill down on something here. Never entertain an undesirable feeling nor think sympathetically. The word sympathetically just really jumps off the page here. Because when you look at the nervous system, you have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic part of the nervous system. These are two halves. So when I understand this, to never entertain an undesirable feeling nor think sympathetically. This means we are charging one or the other side of the nervous system. If we go into a fight or flight, most of us understand what fight or flight means. Something scares us, we jump, our heart starts racing, we become defensive, our brain goes onto high alert, and now we are really suspicious, right? We have our eyes open, we are looking for danger. So if we get into that charge in our nervous system, I understand something else. The whole terminology that you are living in a simulation. Well, through my writing in the past few years, I had this revelation that the stimulation is the simulation that we are experiencing. When we emotionally charge our nervous system, just how I got the goosebumps a while ago, we are sending that signal down into the body. If we go into fight or flight, if we hold a grudge against someone else, it is our own body that has to bear the consequence, bear the burden within. So we can take something that has already happened, right? And we are holding on to it. We are keeping it alive in the present moment. And this is such a deep revelation for not just myself, but for anyone out there who sees the light bulb moment in this. Because again, we have two halves of the nervous system. Symbolically, do not think or do not entertain an undesirable feeling, nor think sympathetically of a wrong in any shape or form. Now, the word entertain means to bind one's attention. So literally, do not give your attention to a feeling nor think sympathetically. Do not charge your nervous system, basically, is another way that you can look at this. The emotional charge of something on the fight or flight side of your nervous system is a tax, right? It is deducting from your emotions. If you look at emotions as credit, right, you are worth billions. So stop charging your emotional system on the fight or flight side of things because it is deducting away from your emotional happiness. This is emotional intelligence, guys. And I'm very happy and grateful that I can sit here and tell you this, because for me, when that light bulb went off, it was like, I saw the light. And so this is the biggest reason why my channel even exists. To do so is to impress upon the subconscious with these limitations. What you do not want done unto you, do not feel it is done unto another. Some people will start to wish things against other people because of something that happened to them. Now, what you put out, you will always get back, and it may not always come from the same person. This is something that through my own writing that I pretty much verified in my own life. There were times where I didn't want to be involved with people and I had to shut that door, so to speak. But these very things right here are the reasons that I had to do that for myself. And yes, sometimes it hurts, but sometimes you do absolutely have to allow the inner feelings to dissipate in order to find that happiness again, to find that balance between those two halves of the nervous system. And down here at the bottom, it says the dominant of the two feelings is the one expressed. I am healthy is a stronger feeling than I will be healthy. To feel I will be is to confess that I am not. I am stronger than I am not. Now, this is very interesting. This gets at the heart of what I mean by to reorder your words. Because if I say I will be, then the underlying implied part of this is that I am not now. So I am means I am means that I am speaking this over my life in the present moment. I am strong. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am that I am, and who am I not to trust that I am? Be still and know that I am. This is very, very interesting. And I hope that you guys out there are starting to see what I mean here when I say this, that the charge on the nervous system, whether it's positive or negative, it comes from the feelings. And that is how we get to the emotions. When you look at emotions as energy, energy does not care if it is good or bad. It is the means of animating the experience. So when we get into fight or flight and we start to hold these inner conflicts within self, then eventually it will be carried out and played out through the body, through our actions, and through the way that we react to other people. This is known as emotional reactivity. It is backwards thinking. It is backwards feeling. It is on the polar opposite of everything that is good. A man can receive nothing less it is given him from heaven. The kingdom of heaven is within you. This comes from Luke 17:21. Nothing comes from without. All things come from within, from the subconscious. It is impossible for you to see other than the contents of your consciousness. Your world in its very detail is your consciousness objectified. Man, guys, it is hitting me strong right now. While you are awake, you are the gardener selecting seed for your garden. Wow. So we, through our conscious awareness, once we are consciously observing our thoughts, right? The observer effect literally means to observe your thoughts as neither good nor bad, nor judge your thoughts, but to allow them to pass. And this allows you to really kind of tap in or tap out, like, I don't want to apply this charge to my nervous system. I don't want to feel this way. And without over focusing, do not give your attention. Do not entertain those feelings. So being able to slow down a little bit allows us to see the bigger picture, because it's like waking up early in the morning and not having some kind of plan for the day, and we just take every day as it comes. And we try to retain everything up here. Things start to get jumbled. The story starts to overlap, and then we can quite honestly, like shaking a 2-liter up, right? We build a lot of pressure and we don't understand. So again, going back to the writing allows us to get things out and allows us to relieve that dis-ease in the body, to relieve that past tension, to bring the present tense talk into our self-talk. I am strong. I am confident. I am worth billions of dollars. I am able to help others because I take care of myself. I love myself so that I can love others. I am both a teacher and a student because I don't know everything. I don't need to know everything. I am a witness and an observer of life. And I am so happy and grateful that I am able to understand and apply this knowledge. Now that you have some tools and hopefully a little bit of understanding of how to apply this knowledge, when we reflect on our past, we can view these lessons and finally see the blessings and turn those into personal wealth and fortune. Again, guys, if a pattern doesn't change, then it will continue to go in the same direction. There's a saying, show me your 5 friends and I will show you your future. And this is the whole premise of a like attracts a like. Now, this isn't about being positive or negative. This is just simply saying that we are attracted to people who that we see are just like us. We gravitate towards what is familiar to us. That is why some people have a fear of the unknown, a fear of change, a fear of doing something different. And that is simply because it is unknown. We have no knowledge of it, so it is very unfamiliar. So your fortune is deep within you. The kingdom is deep within you. Your wealth is deep within you. You are the gift, right? the present moment is the gift of life. The present moment is unvaluable. There's no way you could ever put a dollar amount on the present moment. That is what I'm trying to get at here. So those blessings were once lessons, and now they are creating wealth because you were able to take things out of your mind, put them on paper, and then see and reframe everything, reorder the way that you speak to yourself. By reordering that, we are also changing the command lines, the electrical impulses. We are rewiring the brain because the brain is that amazing. The brain is the most powerful organ in the body. It is essentially the creator of everything that the body experiences. Just like I've showed many times how you can send signals into the body and create a physical response. The mind-body connection is only two parts of that equation. The spiritual aspect is another. In many different ways, we could look out into the outside world and see this. In most schools, you have Spirit Week. In some religions, we talk about the Spirit of God, the Spirit of man, the Spirit of this, the Spirit of that. So get into the spirit of being the creator. Get into the essence of being the creator. So this is what Neville Goddard means by living in the wish fulfilled, living in the end, right? Once you are able to experience that in your body, it has been fulfilled. When I say I am so happy and grateful, I feel the emotions of gratitude. My body responds. The wish has been fulfilled because I experienced it in my body in the present moment. Now, to sit around and say I am a billionaire and then expect for money to manifest out of thin air, now that's a little bit different. You can feel what it feels like to be a billionaire, and from those feelings, put the emotions in motion to achieve and to attract that in to yourself. That is how the manifestations work. It is not always going to be as simple as just giving yourself goosebumps, because again, if you look at emotions as energy, then it takes the proper filling. Again, F-I-L-L-I-N-G or F-E-E-L-I-N-G is spelled two different ways, but it sounds the same. And when you look at fillings as fill in the body, we fill in the body with color and contrast, then we allow the emotions to be put in motion and the manifestation starts to unfold. So going back to the beginning of this video, the definition of the future is the moment of speaking or writing something, the moment before. So your words hold immense power. Your words are strong, and you are stronger than you know once you really tap into this. So you are awesome, and you are able to use your imagination, which is created in the image of God. And this is how we create heaven on earth. Or if you have inner conflict, you could quite literally be creating your own personal hell on earth. Now, I don't recommend that for anyone, and not trying to use this as a way to scare people, but to honestly understand the self-story, that you are the star person in your self-story that you're authoring, right? But it is not all about you. It's not about what you can get from the outside world, but is rather what you can give, what you can create, what you can do for others. If that is truly fulfilling to you, then you are already well on your way to creating your personal heaven through the imagination and experiencing it here in reality. Now that is something that is very special when you stop to think about it. So I want to, before I close this video out, share a few things from one of my other notebooks here. When I started this YouTube channel, I went through this phase where I feel like I probably crammed about 6 or 7 years worth of education into my mind. That was simply, as I said before, the mindfulness stuff, right? To empty out your mind so you can have room for new stuff. I literally went down so many rabbit holes simultaneously, from psychology to celibacy to religion itself, following like religion all the way back as far as I could, and seeing how all these different religions, just like trees, right? There may be many branches on a tree, but it all goes back to the same trunk, eventually going down below the soul into the earth, so to speak. So there were so many different topics and so many different things that I was just eager to have a better understanding of so that I could change the direction of my life. I literally feel like I crammed so much into my mind. But in the very beginning of this, I wrote out what my end goal for all this was. In my future, I see myself connecting with people who share the same energy and love for life. They understand music and harmony, and I want to share this vision as they come along into my life. My career vision with music is public speaking and expression of life. I see an A-team that is so aligned that we complement each other and help fulfill other people's dreams through many forms. Now, for myself, as a mobile DJ, one of the most rewarding parts of the night is not the dance part. It is not the getting paid part. It is those people who take it upon themselves to come personally visit me as I'm packing up at the end of the night and tell me that they had a great time, to tell me that they enjoyed the way that the music went together. These type things to me, you can't put a price tag on. There's no amount of money in the world that could ever give me that feeling. So it is a self-fulfilling act for me to be able to use my talent in a way that helps others. Now, some people will say, oh, a DJ, that's not a career. That's not a life. You can't make a career out of that, right? But for me, if it's self-fulfilling, then it is my wish fulfilled. It is me living in the end. Every single time someone says, I love how the music flowed together. I love this about the way that you were able to put these different songs together. Again, it is self-fulfilling. So I wrote my first blueprint here, and I've been since then for the last 3 years carrying it out and doing it with intention. So another part of this before I close out is I speak through music and rhythm. I flow in direction of positivity, and everything else will come into an alignment. And I also wrote different aspects of the type roles because I wanted to create opportunities for others. And I also wrote in here that universal language is speaking a message differently with the same underlying message. This goes back to metaphors and parables. When we're able to relate to others, we may have to see how we can take a story and relate to them in order to share the same message or share the same meaning. Taking that back to my daughter, right? Trying to get onto her level to help her to understand something that maybe she's not had experience with yet. So universal language allows us to speak to different cultures, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different environments that people grew up in. We may at different points in life have similar aspects of stories or things that we go through, but we are all unique. We are all different. So being able to find a way to relate to others is personal relationships. We speak to the light inside, which means to turn people back to themselves. This was something else that I learned, was when you turn someone back to themselves, it is basically not showing them like the golden mirror, right? Not trying to mirror back something that is ugly about a person, but to allow them to see that what they are telling themselves is not true. This is helping a person break a disillusion or to disillusion them of a self-story. That's not true. Your past does not define you. You are capable. You are beautiful. You are confident. You are able to do things just like I am. If I can do it, you can do it. This is essentially what I mean here. To turn someone back to themselves helps them to see in themselves what they cannot see for themselves. And that is a big difference in how you approach things. So we create through entertaining numbers and symbols and create opportunities for others. And that was the biggest premise of my blueprint. And here I am, 3 years later, still carrying out things that I had wrote. So guys, I do appreciate every single one of you out there. You are worth billions of dollars, and I want to share something with you. I don't know how many of you out there actually use AI, but it is truly a reflection of the user. So input, output. You input a prompt, AI outputs a response. So if you use it as a psychology tool, you can quite literally use it as a self-reflection tool. And if you start to build a, let's say, history with it, then you can ultimately later on use that as a way to uncover things. So I'm going to give you a few examples before we end this video out, and I'm going to do it live on the mic. Can you please give me 2 examples of good patterns through my prompting?
Sure. One pattern I've noticed is how you like to blend creativity with a bit of practicality. For example, when you're working on your branding, like the Hypnowaves or Hypnovibes designs, you always aim for that perfect balance between a visually appealing design and a meaningful message. Another pattern is how you enjoy exploring deeper concepts, like with your YouTube videos on manifestation or imagination theory, and you like to tie those concepts into your creative projects. It's a cool mix of imagination and practicality.
Okay, can you give me a very short story of how I became a billionaire?
Absolutely. Once upon a time, you had a simple idea to blend your love for music, creativity, and positive energy into a brand that resonated with people around the world. You started with your DJ company, then expanded into YouTube, and eventually created a whole line of merchandise. With each step, you infused your projects with authenticity and a focus on uplifting others. Before you knew it, your unique approach and dedication caught on, and the world embraced your vision, making you a billionaire.
Very interesting. Anybody can do this, to be honest. You could use prompts to help you to uncover stuff about yourself. For example, give me 5 things that can help me spot green flags. Give me 5 things that can help me to earn money. Give me 5 things or 3 things that I need to work on based upon my previous prompts. What is a blind spot that I have? Can you spot patterns in my prompts? So I actually learned this because of all these notebooks that I got filled up. I started to filter that stuff through ChatGTP, for example. And this is what I mean by using it as a self-reflection tool. It is not the same as going onto Google and trying to look up information. This can actually be used as a tool, and it is how you apply that knowledge and the input and output. Again, input, output. If you don't change your self story, if you don't change self, then there can be no change on the outside. So be the change that you wish to see, and you will see that change in others. And you will be able to help others to change themselves without force and without trying to convince someone that they need to be changed. Allow people to be who they are, but be the example and the guiding light to help them to be better for themselves. It's a big difference in how you look at things sometimes. And with that, guys, I will see you very soon. You are worth billions of dollars. You are truly amazing, and you are that you are, or I am that I am. Who am I not to trust that I am? Be still and know that I am. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for stopping by.